Question 4, Creditors Control Account 2014 Leaving Cert Higher Level. Usual question with 6 adjustments. It's important to recognise here that a Creditors Control Account is a summary account, whereas a list of creditors is an individual list of each individual creditor. There are 6 adjustments. Adjustment number 1 tells us that cash purchases by Young, which is ourselves in the question, of €890 had been debited to a supplier's account. So I'm going to put in the entry first of all as to what happened. So the question says had been debited to a supplier's account. €890 goes into the list, where the list means supplier, on the debit side. It's in a box, which means it's past tense, it's done. The important part here is cash purchases should not go into creditors control account or creditors list at all, which means the target figure in the question will be 0. So I put 0 in here. I'm looking to make sure my control account and my list are both showing a 0. Control account is empty, so it's okay. My list has got minus 890, and I want to change minus 890 into 0, which means I put in plus 890 on the credit side of the list of creditors. The important words to use in the final answer will be cash purchases. Adjustment 2. Discount of €120 disallowed by a supplier had been treated as discount received of €210 in the books. Take note of the €210 and the €120, they're the two important figures. Discount received of €210 is how it was treated. So I'm going to show the control account and show the list again. So control with a minus and a plus. I put 210 in on the debit side. Representing discount received, we owe them less. On the other side, we've got the list, the minus and the plus, and I put €210 in a box representing discount received. Discount disallowed, on the other hand, is going to cause us to owe €120 more, so my target figure is a plus 120. So when I've got minus €210 on my control account and I want to end up having plus 120 in number line terms, I'm going to put in plus 330 on the credit side. So plus 330 on the credit side. In the list, exact same thing, minus €210. You're looking to go to plus 120, which means we're talking about plus 330. My details and my final answer will be discount disallowed. On to number 3. A creditor had charged Young interest to €110 on an overdue account. The only entry in the books made was a debit of €11 in creditors. Now a debit of €11 means a debit of €11 in the list. So €11 goes on the debit side of the list. It's in a box because it's done already, and over my control account we have a minus and our plus, and we've got no entry. After a protest, this interest was reduced to €50. This was not reflected in the accounts. My target figure becomes plus 50. So €50 is my target figure, which basically means interest charged on us was €50. My control account is empty as we speak here, so I put in a plus 50. That's the interest. My list has got a minus 11. I put a plus 11 in, I go back to 0. Okay, to fix the mistake, and I open a plus 50. Or I can combine both of those as a 61. In fact, in the final answer, I will show the €61 in the list on the plus side. In the final answer, I will show the control on the plus side as €50. On to number 4. Young had received an invoice from a supplier for €860. Receiving an invoice means we're talking about credit purchases. So I'm going to open up the control account and open up the list again. Minus and plus and minus and plus. Question says, was entered in the appropriate daybook as €680. Automatically daybook means control, so I put plus €680 into a box. It goes on the credit side because it's credit purchases. The invoice tells us we're going to receive an invoice and owe more money. The question tells me my list is empty. No entry was made in the personal account. Now, the target figure is going to be a plus because we're talking about an invoice. We owe creditors more. €860 is the correct figure given to you in the question. In your control account, you've got plus €680. I can turn it into plus 860 by inserting €180 on the credit side of the control. My list has got nothing in it, and it makes it easier. I put in a plus 800 260 on the credit side. My details will be credit purchases in the final answer. On to number 5. Young had returned goods €400 to a supplier and entered this correctly in the books. When we're talking about returning goods, it means automatically we will be looking at we owe less money. So for my control account on the left hand side here, my minus and plus, and my list, I'm going to have a minus and plus again. So the important part here is returns means it goes on the minus side. I put €400 on the minus of control. It goes into a box that's done already. Put €400 on the debit side of list, goes in the box because it's been done already. We can read on and we were told that another credit note arrived showing a reduction of 5% for restocking charge. 5% of €400 is 20. The total amount of the credit note therefore is 400 less 20, and that is €380. And we're told it was credited to creditors. So plus 380 goes on the credit side of the list, which represents creditors. And nothing else happened in the books. My target figure is going to be minus, and my target figure is going to be minus 380. And the reason why it's minus 380 is because minus €400 will be the original position. We return goods worth €400, but a restocking charge of a plus €20, minus 400 plus 20 gives you minus 380. Control part is quite easy because you've got minus 400 in there already, and you're going from basically minus 400 to minus 380, which means I put in a plus 20. In the list itself, it's pretty worthwhile to use the calculator and type in minus 400 plus €380 and press equals, and you get a minus 20. So your target figure is minus 380, and we ask the question, what's the gap between minus 20 and minus 380? So I can squeeze in €360 there on the debit side of the list. In this question here, we can talk about purchases returns as being our details. Final one then, a credit note is received from a supplier for €313. Again, a credit note is going to suggest that we owe less money. It's to do with purchase returns. So I can open a control account and I can open a list, and again the signs will be the same all the way down, minus, plus, minus and plus. The only entry made in the books was €31 credited to suppliers. So €31 goes in here on the credit side of suppliers or list, like we're told in the question. The target figure though is going to be a minus, and the amount is 313. When we look at the control account, it's empty, so we put in a minus 313. Minus because we're talking about returning goods, which means we owe our creditors less. And then we look at our list and we've got a plus 31. So plus 31 means that we owe €31 more to our creditors when we should owe them 313 less. And the gap there is going to be 344. That's the gap between, it's basically 313 and 31 added. That's how far apart they are. So we've got a minus 313 in the control account and a minus 344 in our list. And that completes the 6 adjustments. What's worth noting is the items in the boxes do not go into my final answer. It's only the fresh entries that go in the final answer. So a quick summary would be, in number 1 I will be using the €890 on from the credit side of the list. That's going to go in the list part. Cash purchase will be details. In number 2, I'm going to use 330 in control and 330 in the list. Discount disallowed will be the details. In my third one, I'm going to use the 50 from the control and the 61 in the list. My details will be interest. In number 4, I'll be using the 180 in the control, which is the fresh entry, and the 860 in the list. My details will be credit purchases. In number 5, I'll be using the 20 in the control and the 360 in the list. Details will be purchase returns. And final one there, I'll be using 313 from the control account, and I'll be using 344 from the list. I'll be ignoring all the figures in the boxes. And that is the 6 adjustments. We can now look at the final correct answer from that.